Hey, everybody, with us here tonight following the August jobs report that the Biden administration has taken a victory lap over is Mark Collinsworth of Vere Global Financial Wealth Management with his view on what the latest job report really means. Mark, is it such a triumph for the Biden administration?
Well, hi, Larry. I would probably say no. And the reason why is because, perfect example, this morning when the news came out on the unemployment numbers, the stock market took off like a rocket. And then as through the course of the day, people started to realize this has not changed the Fed's perspective on wanting to raise interest rates. The Fed funds futures, which is used as a tool to predict what the Fed's going to do, is still predicting, didn't it barely moved today, is still predicting a 75 basis point increase at the next Fed meeting, which is September 21st.
So a lot of the market then is really anticipating that it's going to be another steep interest rate increase.
Correct. And where the market's really scared at is right now inflation's running about 8.3%, and the Fed funds rate is at 2.5%. As long as the Fed funds rate is below the inflation rate, that means inflation has the upper hand in the game. And the only way to crush inflation is you've got to get the interest rates over the inflation rate. So, as the Fed governors have all said, there's going to have to be some pain in the economy to get there.
So that sounds like they're going to have a series of ongoing steep interest rate hikes as we go along, even past September.
Correct. There's no two ways about it. The Fed's goal here is to reduce demand. And the way to reduce demand is people have to start losing their jobs so they don't have money to spend on these goods and services. Well, if the economy is still creating jobs, the Fed does not want that. The Fed right now has a target rate of 2% inflation, and inflation's running at over 8%. To get it down to 2%, you can't have 300,000 jobs created a month. You need to see three, four, 500,000 job losses a month to get
Yeah.
inflation down to 2%.
Yeah, no, it was 315,000 in August, down from 526,000 in July. But according to the New York Times analysis, it still represented a strong pace of growth, does it?
That's correct. It, that's correct. It still represents a strong growth rate. And right now, the Fed absolutely does not want growth in the economy because to kill inflation, you have to kill the growth rate.
So how much pain do they have to inflict to achieve that?
I've seen several estimates on this. I've seen that the to get to 2%, I've actually seen estimates as high as you're going to have to start losing 500,000 jobs per month to actually get down to a 2% target rate. Or in other words, you're going to have to get up to about a 5.5 or 6% unemployment rate, which is double from where we're currently at.
Well, that sounds like in order to bring down inflation, they're also going to bring down jobs and the economy in general.
That's correct. So whenever the Fed tells you that we're raising interest rates because we want to reduce demand, what they're really saying is how we reduce demand is people lose jobs and don't have any money to demand goods or services. So the Fed has to create job losses to get inflation under control.
Wow. Now, also, they're touting these as newly created jobs for the most part, but really, it's just people returning to jobs that were lost during the or shut down during the pandemic, correct?
That's correct. The largest part of the job growth so far this year has basically come from hospitality and entertainment because all these restaurants are starting to open back up. They're rehiring waitresses and waiters. More people are going to theaters and stuff, so they're hiring more people to that. So it's all concentrated in one specific sector. But also on top of that, I normally don't like to look at the August job numbers simply because so many college kids are going back to school. They're getting jobs on the college campuses, give them some extra spending money. Teachers are returning back to school, and all those numbers kind of flow into the unemployment numbers and can shift it dramatically one way or the other. So I personally ignore August.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the Fox talking heads was saying today that what's interesting also is that the largest percent of these jobs that are being filled now are being filled by teenagers. Why?
Well, that's correct. And that's another problem is that the jobs that are being created are not high quality jobs. They're low quality jobs with the bulk of those jobs um, concentrated in people that are making below minimum wage. So you've got minimum wage, but you have inflation. The wage growth right now is almost stagnant. There's no wage growth whatsoever in the economy, but the cost of your goods and services are still going up. You're still paying for higher Coca-Cola prices. You're paying for, gas prices are still more than double where they were at a year ago. So those things are still impacting the consumer.
Yeah, well, apparently, there is some increase in hourly average earnings, the wages, but of course, they're not at all. They're not even close. Those hikes in wages are nowhere close to keeping up with inflation, correct?
Correct. So it does no good. So if wages went up 0.3% and the inflation rate's running at 8, it does absolutely no good.
Yeah. So, where is this going now? I mean, it's how much do they have to bring down the economy in order to achieve lower inflation? And will the cure be worse than the ailment that's going on now?
That's a good question. I do believe the Fed wants us to have a recession. I think where they're kind of like playing, chicken with the freight train is, does the recession remain mild or does it get out of a hand and become something much worse like a 2008 recession or a 2002 recession?
Yeah. So there's some construction jobs. They rose by 16,000. Uh, so, I mean, ordinarily that would be a good sign, right? I mean, construction work is large wages.
Well, construction, you got to remember, a lot of construction jobs are actually on home builders. The housing market is starting to slow at a very, very quick pace. And we're also starting to come to the end of the home building season. So if I had to guess, those construction jobs, probably here once we start hitting October, November, those construction workers are going to start losing their jobs.
Wow. Uh, so overall, then, this looks like a solid indication of the economy slowing down as a result of the Fed's intentional policies with the interest rate hikes, steep ones. And so their cure is working, but again, how much pain will be inflicted before the economy starts stabilizing and rising again? What's the timeline on that?
I would probably say you're going to start seeing job losses are going to start probably picking up probably towards the end of the year.
And then,
You'll probably have a recession in the first quarter, and then that's where it gets kind of tricky. Does the recession turn out to be a mild recession that gets inflation down, or does it turn out to be a bad recession? Right now, I'm based on what I'm seeing, I'm leaning towards it's going to be a mild recession, but the Fed's been awful aggressive with raising rates. You have to remember these 75 basis points they have, it usually takes about 4 to 5 months for a rate hike to fully work its way through the economy. You
right?
still got a good 100 basis points, a good 150 basis points from when the Fed started hiking rates that hadn't even worked its way fully into the economy yet. So, what's going to happen when that 150 basis points actually starts hitting the economy?
Yeah. Now, also in terms of midterm elections, in terms of politics or the political fallout, will we start seeing the pain increasing noticeably before the midterm elections, which are getting closer and closer, November?
I doubt that. The thing that's probably going to keep jobs kind of neutralized is once we get into October, normally a lot of your retailers actually start hiring people for the Christmas shopping season. So I think that will probably help alleviate any problems there. And let's not forget, Joe Biden likes to brag about how he's got gas prices down at the cost of cutting the strategic oil reserves in half so far this year.
How dangerous is that, by the way?
Well, those oil reserves were specifically set up. If we go to war with the country, those reserves were specifically set up to fuel our jets, our tanks, and our aircraft carriers. Right now, he's cut that number almost in half. And from my days of when I worked in the military and transportation logistics, if we went to a full scale war right now, I seriously doubt we'd have enough fuel to last more than 3 months in a full blown out war.
Uh, and also another development today, the G7 nations voted to put a price cap on Russian oil, which they're still buying from Russia. But Russia immediately turned around and said, okay, if you're going to do that, we're going to cut the spigot off entirely for the countries that are doing that. So who wins? And why was this so miscalculated, since it was obvious that Russia was holding the winning cards here in this play? I mean, Russia had the advantage. They could turn off the spigot. So the price hike that they're imposing on Russian oil backfired. Did that?
I would agree with that. Right now, Russia holds all the cards, in my opinion, and you're getting ready to go into the winter time. Winter in Europe gets really, really rough. If Russia really wants to put the cards on the table, they could cut off all the oil and gas supply to Europe, and you'd see, hundreds of thousands of people freezing to death in Europe.
Well, why would the G7 make a losing move like that when they're not aware of it, that this would be the result?
Think they sit back and they honestly think they either the Russians won't do that, or they're thinking they can get gasoline, oil from other places. What's kind of funny about that is right now there's supposed to be this embargo that you can't buy Russian oil, right? For the most part. Well, Russia's selling their oil to China, and then China's selling it under their name to other countries. You think you're buying Chinese oil, but you're actually buying Russian oil.
Unbelievable. So, yeah, it gets crazier and crazier. So, all right, Mark Collinsworth, thanks for the update on the state of our economy at this moment and where it is heading in the months ahead. Mark Collinsworth of Vere Global Financial Wealth Management, thanks once again for being with us.
Glad to be here.